We are going till at least midnight tonight. I am LOTRO's community manager, Cordovan, here for our 10th anniversary live stream. And appreciate everyone who's stuck around for quite a few hours now. We have quite a few hours to go and a lot of awesome people to talk to, including right now, here over, I'm going to go from the left of the stream to the right. We have got Todd. You are basically our lead artist here, art director here at Standing Stone Games. And John, you're actually, what's your...
Evan.
Evan and John.
Jerry.
How you doing?
Sorry, I had to do too many introductions here today.
Happy anniversary, LOTRO.
Yeah.
Leo gave him such a nice, such a nice intro.
Yeah, and so I don't have your title, Evan. What do you do?
Senior technical artist.
Senior technical artist. Again, just pick up that mic and hold
Problem
it.
solved.
Yeah, take it away from the stand. Just pick it up. There you go. Pretend you are a singer in a band. There you go.
There you go.
You said technical artist.
Technical artist, yeah.
What is a technical artist?
Well, basically, the motto we've used is we make the artwork, which means that we take all the art, put it in the game, make sure it's all hooked up properly, make sure the characters locomote, make sure they can animate. Recently, making destruction, camera, cinematics. I've picked up a lot of different stuff over the years. Did the cosmetic weapon system. Been working on, Lee was talking about that. Working on day files, making all the skies look good. Anything else we're missing here?
I got a few things I can add to that. So
let me stop you for just a second though, and say, so in general, rather than say items in that, you work more on larger scale. I mean, I guess I'm still a little confused as to what that means. Technical artist. Yeah.
A little bit more of like supporting role for the other artists to make sure that their work can get into the game, look the way they want it to look. Would be probably a good way to say it.
Yeah, there's scripting. There's some of the traditional areas of focus for tech art are rigging, scripting, shaders. Evan has been in the current incarnation of the team. Evan's one of the more senior artists here, and over the many chapters that have taken place over the last 10 years, the team has changed form and grown and shrunk. And Evan was on the team at a time when it was at its smallest, and that was a time when Evan was able to really open up his skill set. And honestly, Evan and the levels to which he rose really enabled us to do stuff with a very small team that if he hadn't, we never would have been able to. So his role has grown a lot since then. And I will say this about tech art as a discipline, working with all of the various art disciplines, a lot of art is done just by executing, and you have a task, you have to make a character, and you make the character. You have an animation, you make the animation. You're adding to the game, and one of the really important functions that tech art can play is multiplication. Tool support and process support and basically making the ability of individual artists to add to the game easier, and in that way effectively multiplying our ability to be productive. So it's a really crucial discipline, and Evan holds it down really well, in addition to doing a lot of actual adding. Evan's doing a lot of artwork as well.
So let me actually give you the mic back there, Evan. And the reason I'm giving you the mic back is people have been kind of hearing the chat here and saying, I bet you're going to be busy with all this avatar update and things like that.
Yeah, that's right where Todd was saying multiplication of tasks. So we're working on one character at a time, multiplying basically onto all of their different armor pieces and getting it to work.
This is how we're actually pulling this off.
Right.
This guy right
so,
here. Right?
So I mean, we're not talking about you just load up a file and say, do a pass on the way it looks in Maya or something like that and call it done. I mean, there's a lot of technical work and then a lot of versions of that need to be done.
Oh, definitely a lot of versions. Yeah, we probably on version 8 of the update now, and I'm willing to bet we're going to double that before we're done. The main purpose is, or the main focus is to get one set looking good and then multiply it out, and then figure it out, do some hand tweaking at the end, make sure everything's polished at the end. But the task is huge, and in order to be able to do it, we don't have enough people to just like slave away on each single piece for days. You just got to do one and then multiply it out.
Okay.
So that's kind of where we're focused on now.
Yeah, the scope of this task. This is not a typical undertaking for an MMO, especially one that is as august, I will say, as LOTRO with so much content, because there's just so much stuff that needs to be touched. We're able to do this in part because of the tool support we got, and it is within the realm of feasibility, and we kind of had to work our way up to it, and before we could say, okay, I think we can actually do this, and then Rob mentioned it, so that kind of like, I guess we're doing it.
Sometimes we cause your life's difficulty.
But I'm so excited.
They said
to
what
do
we're
it.
gonna do. Oh my god.
Yeah, exactly. I like to. I hope that it's perceived by our fans as we're totally committed. We see a long future for the game. For me, there are things about what we've the foundation, the character work foundation, and credit to all the people that have participated and contributed to that over the years. I mean, we are standing on the backs of a lot of really hard work, but it's not all optimal, right? And some of that is a result of like building a system in a hurry on top of a system somebody else built in a hurry, right? And the accumulation of debt, and over 10 years you find yourself in a position where I'm not, the net result of all this, like if we had the time, we could make this better, that it comes at the expense of doing production, right? Like adding new stuff, going back and fixing old stuff. But I think it's gotten to the point with the avatars where I hope people are going to be very excited about the possibility of seeing the characters they're familiar with presented in what I hope everybody agrees is just a more solid presentation.
So. That's actually a good question. So Thurlore over in Twitch chat says, can we describe in a general sense the technical improvements? Are we talking about like more polygons, better textures, more faces, more hair options, that kind of thing?
Yeah. So do you want to speak to this?
Well, in general, the polygons for the bodies are going to be basically the same. I think we're adding
edge flow is going to be a lot better.
So
the articulation.
I'll keep going.
We're doing a lot of work on the body. So
I'm super excited.
I know, right? It's cool though.
What can I say?
So we are working on the bodies. It's not saying we're not, but the majority of the increase in poly count is going to be on the faces.
Mm-hmm.
The hair is basically getting a complete overhaul, but the basic idea is to keep the spirit of everything that's currently existing and just make it look better. Definitely better textures for the face and the hair. You're gonna see that come in.
Yeah.
Is there anything else there?
One of the things, I mean, we're very sensitive that players have invested a lot of time into these characters and identify with these characters. These are themselves, right? These are their avatars. We really want to respect that. We don't want the player to have an experience where they feel like something they're familiar with has been taken away from them. So really trying, it's easy to stray away from that, but really trying to bring it back to like, is this just a better version of what players are used to seeing? And that is one of the things one of the standards we're trying to hold ourselves to. And because we know this is such a sensitive area and we want to really ensure that we're not doing any harm, one of the first things we wanted to prove out was the solution that Evan came up with, and that is the switch. Right? Like we want people to just have the ability, like you guys that's better. What are you talking about? How can you improve on the LOTRO avatar?
I was just gonna say that because like people in chat here are like, that sounds great, but I love the way my guy looks, and that is a credit to the work that's been done.
Yeah.
And just yes, we do want to allow you to do that as well. We suspect in many cases you'll see the new avatars and be real excited about it. But if that's not you, that's perfectly fine, and we're going to give you an opportunity to stay there.
It's going to be new, and like we have yet to finish, so I can't tell you exactly what it's going to be. These are our goals that are driving us. People will have I think there will be a subset of people who see it and are just like, I don't know, but then if they give it a chance, maybe they'll be like, wait a minute, this actually this is working.
Hopefully you'll be ready for Bull Roarer, and then maybe the players can get a first look at it, and hopefully
Yeah,
get some
pass the
feedback.
mic over to
let's
John.
get- let's get the QA
So
perspective on
you're
it.
Sorry about that.
You're the next in this chain, which is they'll have all this work done, and then it gets passed to you, and you
Yep.
do what?
I am a senior QA tester for Lord of the Rings. So yeah, once they're all done changing the faces and everything else, so like me and the rest of the team, we're gonna have to go through and try to figure out, make sure everything meshes together and there's no clipping like through like their armor and cosmetic helmets and stuff
Yep.
like that. So we're gonna have to test all that stuff, and like I said, hopefully it'll be ready for the first Bull Roarer test, and then we can get as many players on Bull Roarer as possible to give us their feedback
When
to
is
see what
that
they think.
again, John?
That's
When is
That
About a month?
is rubbed up.
Yeah, we're going to aim
Yeah.
high here.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean,
Just
obviously,
if-
we need to be thinking about our descent and landing soon.
Yeah, right.
That's something
No, we'll
so
have
it's not
more
out of the
information
realm of
on Bull
reasonable
Roarer soon.
expectation.
Yeah. That's a big
Well,
hope.
maybe not
So,
soon.
We'll see.
Soonish.
Yeah,
So,
soonish, exactly.
But part of the reason I actually am glad you're here, though, is because it is an iterative process. You do a lot of that work. It gets passed to the QA team. You put together not just a bug list, but really a list that then gets passed back to you for further iteration and that. So it's really a collaborative process between QA and that to get it done. It's all done. Now, is it yay or nay? It's a mix of back and forth and continued iteration to get
Yeah,
this
there's,
stuff where it
there's
needs
definitely
to
a
be.
lot of iterations as we look at it and as we run around and play and swap out the different armors and stuff like that. And then we have great communication with everybody, not just the art team, but everybody else. And then we tell them what we find, and then they go through their process and to see what they can tweak about it, what they can change, or whatnot.
What is the most crushing thing you've ever had to tell a dev?
The most crushing thing is whatever it is they did. Like normally, my main focus is content. So the worst thing is telling a dev it wasn't very fun. It crushes his hopes and dreams.
Yeah, there you go. But that's also part of the process, too.
It is, because
Yeah.
I mean, I am quality assurance, and my job is not only to make sure it all works, also to make sure that it's fun. How engaging is it to the player? Are they really absorbed into the story, absorbed into their character? So it's all part of the fun aspect, and does it work as best it can?
All right.
So John has to channel all the player types, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
basically. Yeah, I got to just go through and just try to figure out all the different play styles of all the different characters, as well as my own play style, and as best as possible, and try to figure out, okay, how many different people would play this in a different fashion, and would they all enjoy it?
Let me move away from avatars and toward another art topic, which is the High Elf. I want to send this to you.
That's you.
So
yeah, the High
clearly,
Elf,
Chris and team do a lot of research on lore in terms of how we want them to look, how we want them to act, their story. So you do rely on the development team for some of that, but there's also a lot of just basic concepting that happens at your stage of the process.
Yeah. So as is the case with most content that we develop, especially stuff that is really iconic to the books and to the lore, Chris did his research and put together a document that collected relevant reference to high elves that we had and are using and have used to help drive the spirit of the high elf. The high elf work is actually fitting in very nicely with the avatar polish work that we're doing. So there's a lot of efficiency that we're finding as we're working through proportion refinement and improvement for the rest of the races. It's really helping us find and we're working with bipeds that are variations on, and not hugely different variations, and each one of them has variations itself with the bone scaling stuff. So finding the place that the high elf resides in that range, doing that while we're sort of reestablishing what the other races are has been beneficial. And some of the tools that Evan's been building to help us do the procedural polish work that we're doing are also helping us do high elf variants very efficiently of some of the existing stuff. So I think we have not released concepts for High Elves yet.
No,
I think
not
you can
not
confirm
yet.
that yet.
Yep.
So we have concept out for licensure approval right now. It is, so we'll see when that comes back. My hope is that they're gonna look at it and give it a big thumbs up and say, hey, this is looking awesome. We know within a margin sort of the direction it's going in. So there are several dimensions of high elf development that are underway that the response to this will correct, if there is any. Once we have confirmation on the sort of refined expression of the direction, the concept, armor, we'll be able to share that. And that's going to drive bringing this thing home to conclusion. So.
But it really is, I mean, part of the making High Elf look different from the existing elves in the game really falls on your guys' shoulders.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
There is going to be some gameplay difference, and this has been one of the things that we've had to talk about. MMOs. Content, especially a system like an Avatar, which is a collection of systems, the full extent of which is huge. I mean, we have to think about how can we do this in a way that's gonna really do justice to the race and what we want it to look and feel like, but that we can actually accomplish because we got a couple other pots on the stove at the same time, right? Like
Mordor,
like Mordor, for example, and
Small thing.
just a couple little things going on.
So Todd,
more Mordor jokes.
Yeah.
Yeah, just
we need more doors. Yeah.
More doors.
I actually have to credit you there. You're the one who came up with the more doors idea.
Yes, I did. We never did anything right there.
I know I did. I brought it up.
You did?
As a tweet. I was able to bring it as a tweet.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah.
Good.
So you are the art director, which means that it's also your job to do things like scoping, figure out what all art we need.
Yeah.
How do we balance doing the Avatar work with the High Elf, with Mordor, and keeping it all on track, and delivering all this stuff in time that the development team can then put it into the game and do all that sort of thing.
That's right.
How do you spin a million plates?
If I were to step back and objectively look at that, I would probably have a panic attack. But I tend to not do that. I rely a lot on our experience. We've been doing this for a long time, and I know how resourceful the artists are. I know, I'll come to Evan and say, "Hey, Evan, can we do this?" And Evan's not the kind of person to say no to anything, right? Thankfully, but the solution might not always be obvious, or the sort of perceived. Scope, right? Like something might seem like, oh, geez, really? Like that's crazy. But I'm like, but it would make things easier. And often, we'll make those. Evan will come up with a solution, and we'll find efficiencies. I depend on that. When we start planning, hey, the art team needs to do all of these things by this date. It doesn't always make sense. There's a certain amount of if we can solve generally for the broad strokes of the big themes, then I know through development we can find ways to kind of accordion them and find efficiencies and get them in. So there's a little bit of faith in the abilities of all the artists on the team, really. But certainly that's not all. There is a lot of very granular planning and looking at dependencies and we, in order for John to do his job and for us to have time to respond to QA, we need to have things done in time to do that. So it's not always pretty and it's not always clean. I will not lie. This update is really freaking big, and this is definitely on some levels uncharted territory in terms of scope. But yesterday was a sprint planning day, and I've been working with the artists in the last 2 days to really look at near term goals, and then how are we shaping up at the same time for the longer term goals. And again, it doesn't fit quite, but we're within
closer.
We're within or not outside of parameters that we've found ourselves in before. So we've got a lot of hard work, no doubt, and everybody, this is Mordor, right? This is the 10th anniversary. This is a release that we want to express how I think excited we are about the opportunity of Standing Stone games. So there's a lot of reasons why we want to do a good job with this one and really push it to its full potential.
Yeah. So maybe I'm not sure who would be the best person to ask this. What is the thing you've been able to make that because Lord of the Rings is such an iconic setting that you were like, I got to make. I got to see this thing happen.
You got anything in that area?
Talk to the mic. Yep.
Yeah, I'm not thinking. I think destruction is probably pretty big on that list.
Oh yeah.
I think we started with destruction on the Isengard gates, where we had the horns going in and just pounding on it and breaking it up. That was pretty epic because I got to work on Isengard. From there, it was probably the sequence of camera stuff that I liked the most was probably Grond breaking the gate down. That's pretty iconic.
So one of the many pieces of tech that Evan brought to a level where we could actually really use it reliably was this in-game cinematic stuff. So what was the first one we did? The first one we did was in Isengard. Excuse me, was in Minas Tirith with the Witch King breaking down the gate.
It was
that
Osgiliath. We did it in Osgiliath.
We did it in Osgiliath.
Gothmog.
With
Gothmog, I think was the first one we did.
So Evan actually figured out how to get the in-game cinematic camera working with multiple cameras and cuts and that was all his tech. And then he went on to be the cinematographer and he was basically creating the cameras and I thought it was pretty good, and we've gotten, I think, much better since then, right? So the tech's gotten cleaner, and our ability to tell stories with those tools, which at that time were new to us, but that's been a lot of fun. And Evan was right there doing the cinematography for a bunch of those, right? Like you did Theoden's demise, right? With Aowen and I Am No Man.
Another iconic moment.
Another iconic moment. And we would not have been able to tell that part of the story in that way without the cinematic camera tech, and we're using it a lot in Mordor as well. We've got a lot of pretty ambitious sequences that we're trying to do. Destruction. Hashtag destruction.
Yeah. No spoilers.
No spoilers. Nobody knows what's gonna happen. Yeah.
Okay. I think just for the purposes of time, I think we might be close to wrapping things up with you two artists. I'm going to keep you around just a little bit, John, so we can delve into QA. But any kind of final thoughts you want to bring?
I brought my tombstone.
Oh yeah.
So
okay,
guys,
so you call it a.
That's the worst name for it.
Call it
the opposite of a tombstone, isn't it?
Why is it called a tombstone?
That's a great question. I don't know. I don't think I coined that. I think I've just sort of carried it forward.
But what that means is you were present during the launch of the game in April 24th of 2007, right?
That is correct. I have been working on the project for 13, 14. I actually have lost track, but a lot of years now. I started 3 years before release of this title on Mio at the time.
Yeah.
So
Middle Earth Online.
Online.
So what do you remember about launching LOTRO?
Interestingly, I was actually on DDO when LOTRO launched.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Everybody.
So you remember going, "Phew, glad that wasn't
pretty
me."
much.
Yeah,
what I remember is much of the team focusing on getting performance to work in Brie and thinking, "Wow, I'm really glad I don't have to do that right now." So I think I mentioned this last year, so I figured I'd bring it in this year. Have you seen that?
That's fantastic. That's awesome.
Yeah, proud very, very proud. 10 years. I can't believe it.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
really?
Absolutely. All right, well, Todd and Evan, thank you so much for stopping
Thanks,
by and
Jerry.
sharing the world of art with us. Really appreciate
Here, you
seeing
want this
your
for,
works
as a
in game
prop?
to come.
We can leave that
keep
there.
it to you.
for
We'll
now.
make sure
Don't
we
forget to bring it back.
absolutely
I have witnesses.
right. Yeah. All right,
Sign
thanks.
it after you.
See you guys. Thanks, John.
So, John, I figured we would just spend the next 6 hours talking about our favorite heavy metal bands.
So, that I could get into.
Yeah,
that
so
I
we could do
definitely
that. No, I'm kidding, of course. But seriously though, what heavy metal music do you listen to while testing? No, I'm kidding. But so what? I mean, how do you deal with the QA is both interesting, but there's also a tedious side to it.
Yeah.
And
it
how
really
do
is.
you both keep your mind sharp to do what you need to do while also working on iteration 987 of a thing?
It's when you're doing something like that, you always got to keep in your mind that you're trying to make a good game. And like when I go to test, I constantly think in my head, I'm like, yeah, there are some days it's like, oh my God, this is like the 30th time I got to test this one quest or something like that. You always want to try to do the best you can, because when the update goes out, you want to try to do your very best to make sure that the players themselves don't see these kind of bugs, don't see these things.
Right.
You're always trying to make a good game for the players. And that's the, that's the whole basic thing. It's like yeah, sometimes, you're on a never-ending treadmill, but you're doing it for the greater good.
Yeah.
So that's
yeah.
how I kind of think of it. So
Is there a most difficult part of the job?
most difficult. No, I mean not really. Sometimes it is when you got to try to test like group content, like with
Yeah.
like raids and dungeons and stuff like that, when you need like more than one person. And sometimes we have 2 monitors, so you got to log on with 2 accounts and 2 keyboards and everything else, and you got to try to do it at the same time,
Oh, nice.
and then try to wrangle in other people. Say, hey, who's free for like a half hour? We got to get in and test this raid or dungeon or something like that, and got the rest of the team. So that's usually mostly the hardest part, is the test, big group content.
How long have you been with, I guess, Turbine, and then now Standing Stone Games?
I started in October of 2010.
Okay.
So I was originally on DDO. So I
Uh-huh.
tested DDO for like 6-7 years.
Yep.
And then last June, one of the LOTRO testers ended up leaving. And then they needed another one. And I was like, hey, I'll jump in. I want to try LOTRO just to see, how the other half is. And it's been great.
Does the skill apply to just about any game, or is each game its own different beast?
It's kind of like a 50-50. Because when you're a QA tester, you basically have the skills that you need to test other games. It's just trying to figure out like the admin commands and the different systems of how each game goes about, like how their games work is the basic gist of it. But testing is basically testing, You still have the same mindset to try to think outside the box and just try to think, okay, how many different ways can I go at this one thing, like a quest? How many different ways can I go at this quest, or how many different characters can I use and like add, different skills and abilities and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So your basic gist is you're trying to break it.
Yeah.
So that way players don't.
So what happens when you go home at the end of the day and, boot up your computer and play either our games or another game? Do you have to shut off that mindset, or do you just sort of
Yes.
sit there as in MST3K the whole process?
Yeah, a lot of times, yeah, you do. You just want to go home and you just shut your brain off for a little bit and just like do something mindless for a little bit. Because I mean, we're here for like 10, 11 hours a day, something like that. Sometimes more. So yeah, the majority of the time, yeah. But there are some times where you're like, oh, let me try this, see how this works. So yeah.
On the plus side, I imagine you not only see the bugs, but you start to get a sense of why these things happen in a way that I think a lot of folks like myself and players just don't get to see. So when you are playing through some other game or whatever, and you see a certain glitch, you're like, I know how that happens.
Yes.
know?
No, exactly. Whether it's like a DX9 or 10 or something to do with shaders or something like that, one of your settings that are in there. So yeah, ends up happening that way too.
All right.
That's a thoughtful face.
Yeah, I was just trying to think what would be a good.
I know that face.
What other questions I really want to make sure I ask? I guess Is it still fun?
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
It's like I wake up every morning knowing what I have to do,
Yeah.
and I thoroughly enjoy it after like 7+ years or whatever it is. Yeah, I still love coming to work. It's the greatest job ever.
And you, particularly with what you're doing now, you are going to be a huge part of getting Mordor out the door.
Yeah, we started like last week for content and stuff like that. So
Yep. Yep.
yeah, we're hitting the ground running.
And it's not just to good point. It's not even just to release. You're getting things ready, probably at some point here, bull roar first.
Yep.
Before you even say get to a live release candidate.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that's still far out, but yeah, it's like one thing I can definitely tell you is Mordor is huge. The area itself is monstrous. I've been running around through it, just checking out all the different areas and whatnot.
Nice.
It is monstrous. So players will have a lot to explore, a lot to see, a lot of cool things. So hoping everyone's going to enjoy it. So
Awesome.
keep our fingers crossed.
All right. Well, thanks, John. I'm going to let you get going here,
All right.
but I appreciate you stopping by. It was great
All
to
right.
talk
Thank
to
you very much.
All
Appreciate
right,
it.
Cool.
Happy anniversary, everyone.
Yep. Let's pass the mic